Was golden, y'all. It's Brian back with another Blerding While Dad live stream. Um, Facebook acting the fool right now. So let's try this again while everybody kind of filters in. I'm glad to be back tonight. Hopefully, y'all had you spent some time with your family, got a chance to honor anybody that's passed on or whatnot, but you got a day of relaxation or some form of relaxation this weekend. I'm really happy to be back here with y'all. And hopefully we can have an interesting live stream tonight. So before we get too far into it, a little bit of housekeeping things. I'm paying a little bit more attention to Twitch, just because that seems to be the platform where I'm getting my engagement and people are really locking in. Let me fix that because y'all don't need to be seeing my lamp there. Ooh, y'all don't need to be seeing that either. But I'm locking in on my Twitch and making sure that I'm up to date and handling business over there. Locking in on some other stuff, and so I'm really trying to lean into taking these social media platforms a little bit more seriously, just so that I can give y'all a better product, give y'all a better show. And so you're going to see some things regarding production value and things along those lines straighten up. Do need to fix my camera though. That's the number one thing, right? Like making sure my camera's right before we get too far into this. Second thing, and this leads into my first point of the night. I get a lot of requests to debate people. Okay. A lot of people get on here and they want me to debate. They want me to open up lines and talk to people and do the live argumentation stuff on the stream. And I don't have the energy for that, because a lot of times this online space, and I've talked about it plenty of times, I don't have a lot of use for online debating and debate bros or anything, but it goes to another point. A lot of these people that log on and you see them on Facebook, you see them where there's some talking head that they disagree with, they get online and then they just unload all they shit on these people. I've seen it with bro who has the cat ear headphones. He gets it all the time. And so a lot of times these people aren't really looking for a debate. They're looking for an outlet. I ain't trying to be nobody's outlet. I don't I don't want to sit up here and have some guy with a life that he's not satisfied with decide that he's gonna trauma dump all of his political rage on me and I'm the vessel. I ain't trying to do that. They want access to yell at somebody they disagree with because they get tired of yelling at their television screen without getting a response. And I've been in the position, smarty plants, black guy. It just seems I attract the debate bros who want to sit there and yell at some uppity Negro who they want to put me in my place and stuff. I don't want to do that on my platform, y'all. And so it's driven by that weird need. And so I'm not turning this into one of them call-in shows where you get to sit there and scream or yell or unload whatever inadequacies that your parents left you with. I ain't trying to do all that stuff. And it always shows up as, oh, you're so smart. You think you know everything. I've been told, oh, you too smart for your own good, whatever that means. You always got something to say. You use all them big words. You think you're better than me. Like I've lived the experience of where actually being in a position where I'm smarter than somebody else is a threat to me. And I don't want to start that on my stream, bro. So, a lot of times when we get into this and you see these call-in shows, what happens? You sit there and watch Dean Withers or whoever your debate bro choice is. You watch these streams or you see the clips, and what it is, it's they pick up the phone and this person just starts berating them, just screaming or yelling the political issues that are on their mind. They're just going to completely unload on Dean and he sits there and he takes his notes and then he rebuttals. Um, that I'm not that guy. I'm not. Um, I'm a nice person. Like I'm a pretty patient person, but I'm not the dude that's gonna sit there and let you call. I'm not gonna sit on my own platform and be berated by somebody who has, they're just looking for, um, they have emptiness in their life and they're looking for another human being to crash into. I'm cool on that shit. The debate bro thing is great for other people's channels. I don't want to do it. I've had somebody in my a couple weeks ago, I had somebody on my stream literally demanding that I give him a phone number or open up live chat so he could sit there and argue with me about some specious thing that he had in his brain. I ain't finna do that. It's not gonna happen. More times than not, they want me to stop analyzing. They want me to stop naming things. They want to put me on the back foot because that's their way of putting me in my place. You can get your own social media platform if you want to sit there and bicker with people that disagree with you politically. I ain't the one. I will engage in if somebody posts something in the chat and we can have an honest discussion. But if I feel like it's a bad faith, I'm going to call it out. And I don't necessarily want to have to mute you so that I can control what's happening on my stream. It's just not going to happen. So I talk about fake expertise a lot. I talk about it a lot on my other podcasts and stuff. I don't pretend to be an expert in everything. I really try not to. But I do know a lot of different things because I've done a lot of different things. Okay. I'm tired of arguing with motherfuckers who don't read. Tired of arguing with people who can't be bothered to pick up a book or read a newspaper or anything. I don't want to argue with people whose main source of news is memes or videos they saw on their social media feed. I have no patience for that. I don't want to argue about politics with people who don't want to actually learn more about the thing that they're ready to fight and argue about. Okay. Don't want to argue with people who don't read. I don't want to argue with people who don't have a basic knowledge of American history or who constructed their political ideology from funny memes that somebody sent them or that they saw on Twitter or whatever. Or people who watched a few videos and now they think they understand public policy, race, law, all these other topics that require a little bit deeper understanding. And so that's why I don't do the debate bro stuff. Okay. Meme knowledge is not the same thing as knowledge. Like knowing something because you read it off of some witty meme somewhere is not the same thing as actually understanding public policy. Okay. And so, no, I will not be the container for your stream of conscious outrage. So I can give you a voice chat onto my platform, so you can sit there and scream inarticulate garbage at me and expect me to refute the weird shit that you have constructed in your head. I ain't doing that. And so, people want their ignorance or the things that they come up with in their brains to be kind of treated as the same as actual fact check knowledge. One of the things I do hold myself into account for is if I don't know, I really try my best to say, I don't know enough about that right now to have an opinion on that. I say it in my real life. I will say it on the stream if I encounter something that is outside of my purview of knowledge, because I feel like that's basic respect to the audience. I feel like that's basic respect to y'all. When I am stepping outside of something that I know, I feel like it's basic respect to say, I don't know enough about that to opine about that thing. That is not my area of expertise. Okay. But a lot of times, and it's a matter of respect, right? Like if I don't know something, I'd rather tell you, hey, I don't know enough about that to form an opinion on it because I respect you. Right. Maddie, that's just being an adult. But unfortunately, a lot of times what happens is, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for jumping in. A lot of times what happens is people mistake, and I just did a live stream this morning about this with a friend of mine. People mistake being familiar with the topic They mistake that for expertise, and they mistake knowing, having a a 15-minute videos version of knowledge. They mistake that for being the same thing as an expert who's gone to school for said thing. Okay. Um, I've seen people specifically on my friends list because I know some pretty knowledgeable people. Um, I've seen somebody go heads up with somebody who was a doctorate, like the doctor in terms of economics, like like PhD in economics and economic development. I saw somebody sit there and try to argue with him about economic policy, and it dimmed my hope for humanity just a smidge, just a where enough where um you ask that question like, dang, is this real life? And so I've seen it though, and this person was quoting a meme at somebody who had studied and written and has taught the thing. And so I think that's what happens a lot. And people are scared of saying, I don't know. It looks worse to say, I don't know, than to just make up and freestyle some bullshit. That's the world we live in right now, right? Um, it looks worse to say, I don't know enough about the thing. I need to go learn more. It actually looks worse. It's the ego thing. People get into the ego side of it. Well, if you don't know, that's why presidential debates are worthless enterprises. Um, because anybody could look bad on a debate stage, right? All it is looking good on television. If you fail that test, instantly you aren't qualified to be the president of the country. The internet has conditioned us to fight and be toxic and be right. Right. And I think one of the things is a lot of people would rather feel right than be factually accurate, if that makes sense. They'd rather feel the feeling of being right. Yeah. Feels above reals. Right. I like that one. I might have to steal that one. Because oftentimes feeling right is a cathartic thing. Like, I won the argument, I won the debate, I'm right, you're wrong. And that's what it ends up breaking down into. And a lot of times people will opt, and yeah, I'm going into that one because it's been weaponized. Um, they will opt to live in a fictional world than deal with a reality that doesn't align with that they don't agree with. It's the concept of and there's some cognitive science thing which I can't not name. I know it's not Dunning-Kruger or anything, but the human brain will deal, and I think it might be narrative bias if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it might be narrative bias. Um, the human brain will deal, like, our brains are wired to deal with an incorrect narrative over an incomplete one. So if somebody presents us information and the narrative is incorrect, we will believe something that is incorrect over something that is incomplete. And that's how you get flat earthers. um that's how you get any number of conspiracy theories, specifically if they relate to science or something where somebody doesn't understand. They will make up a reason and believe that reason earnestly. So people would rather deal with a incorrect narrative over an incomplete one. They don't like that ambiguity. And um and so we will ascribe meaning to noise just because it fulfills our narrative bias. The algorithm push hardcore right-wing politics and beliefs. Here's the thing that I've learned, because I do my day job is helping people get their message out on social media, helping business owners and whatnot. One of the things about social media and the way that these algorithms are made, they are made to drive engagement. And it doesn't matter if the engagement is positive or negative. they are conditioned to blitz you with points, with things you don't agree with, or people you're likely to argue with. They will keep feeding them into your feed because they know that most people are wired to argue with people online. And so they will just ram that stuff right in, like they'll just keep shoving it into your face, just so that you argue with people. I have friends that I don't ideologically see eye to eye with, and my social media algorithm, my Facebook specifically, will put them at the top of my feed. And I've had to train myself to not argue with them. Meticulously not. But yeah, white ring, that's what I'm saying. And so the more incendiary politics, the more incendiary the talking point is, the more likely it is to show up on your feed. They want people to engage and fall right down the right wing pipeline. They do, but really their money is made by keeping you on platform. And you're more likely to stay on platform if you argue with people. That keeps you on platform. They keep you on platform. They can show you more ads. So yes, there's some bias. Like there is a right wing bias specifically on who controls the platform, but also there's a cash incentive for it. The longer they keep you on platform, the more ads they can show you. And so even on the other side, for right wingers, they will constantly put people that they don't agree with in their feed. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Ready for another adventure this week. And so that's really how the social media platforms are optimized. And YouTube is really interesting. I sat there and watched I don't normally get into the bread tube left wing drama slop that goes on, but I was watching the entire Bad Empanada FD signifier thing, which was really interesting to see how that played out. And so yeah, it's either malicious or profiteering. It's both, and both of them can be really lucrative. The same outcome. The what? So FD signifier is he's a black leftist academic who doesn't necessarily like there are aspects of online leftism that he's in line with or whatnot. And Bad Empanada is in that box where he is he's kind of in that I'm a leftist, but I say racist and anti-Semitic slurs for shock value kind of dude. And so he and FD kind of bumped heads. It was an interesting little dynamic, and how two sides of the same street can intersect and bump into each other. People who do that shock are grifting. Yeah, and that's what his thing is. That's where a lot of streamers really a lot of people who do the professional streaming thing, that's really where they build their base, is the shock value, over the top antics and things along that. That's why I feel like sometimes I have a difficult time finding an audience, because I try to be pretty level. Because what you see is what you get with me. I'm pretty like, this is how I normally am in real life. And so I don't know if my personality carries that way online. And I don't give a lot of energy to fighting and arguing with people. Just don't. So yeah, all that to say, this is why I'm not doing the live chat where I have right wingers call in or voice chat me and argue with me on my stream. I don't want it. It's extra stress. And I don't really want to engage with that level, because the people normally, when you see these kind of feeds where you have somebody who's debating, I'm going to debate, what's the name, um um the debate me bros and stuff like that, the Dean Withers and stuff. A lot of times the people that call in to those um aren't really that, you don't see super educated people doing it. They have one point that they're going to make and they're going to scream it belligerently, profiting on racism and bigotry. Yeah. Well, and for him, it's not necessarily, it's a shock value thing. Like there was a whole thing with him using anti-Semitic slurs, but he calls himself pro-Palestinian, but it's a bunch of slurs. And FD signifiers basically saying, I don't think that there's a lot of utility. Like he's like, I'm pro-Palestine as it gets, but I don't see there's a lot of utility in using slurs to convey the message. I think that's actually harmful to what we're trying to accomplish here. bigoted. Yeah. I tried to explain to a friend that leftists actually have morals and right wingers are vibes. That's why Asmongold is so popular on the right because his audience lets him. Well, and um, Asmongold, I think he's kind of transitioned over into like him living in squalor, like where there's roaches and stuff crawling around on the screen and stuff. That's his brand, which is really weird. And you wonder the kind of people that connect with it. Yeah, that's what it is. It's all entertainment. But again, um, if you don't, and I don't want to be that person that, well, I couldn't get on with this debate me, bro. So I'm jumping on here because this is somebody I could sit there and scream on. Like, I don't want to do all that stuff. That in my past life, I would have wanted to do that, but I've gone through enough on the internet with death threats and all kinds of other hyper parasocial things that I don't want to open myself up to that again. Yeah. He's a sideshow attraction and it's monetized for him. He's making money doing it. Like, Twitch streams pay enough, and he has a big enough audience where they subsidize his misanthropic, weird kind of thing that he has going. Yeah, it is all about the entertainment side of things. And unfortunately, I grew up right-wing grifting is very profitable. That is true. I'm about to date myself. So one of the shows I grew up on back in the days, um, when Bill Maher used to be on ABC, Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher. And I remember very clearly how that show was structured. And I remember him, they had Boots Riley from the Coop up there. And you know, Boots, who is is known as a director now. He was a rapper back then, and um, Boots had challenged him about some things that he had said about. I think at the time it was that invading Iraq? I think it might have been invading Iraq, but he challenged him on some things, and Bill Maher basically mocked him and tried to make him look stupid, and come to find out Boots was right about the whole thing, about the entire this invading Iraq on a faulty premise. But that's where I grew up with the political debate shows, right? And now it's just I'm gonna go yell at the I'm gonna hop on here and go yell at this smarty pants black guy, and I don't want to do that. People watching for the spectacle. Like I don't like. I'm over like right. Bill Maher is right there with Asmongold with me as far as I'm concerned. Like I've kind of abandoned him a long time ago, and I don't do a lot of the political streamers as much anymore because all it is um it feels like it's just somebody sitting there waiting for somebody else to run in there so they can argue with them. Yeah, Bill Maher constantly has the wrong take. Here's the thing about Bill Maher. Bill Maher has convinced himself that enjoying sex with black and brown women has made him this 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 visionary in terms of race, and he can do and say anything. And he is like he is the quintessential centrist guy who doesn't really believe in anything strongly, but will say just about anything. I mean, I read the thing where they talk about how he basically pays his audience. Like now, people have kind of exposed that they bring his audience, they bring them in, they're casted, they bring them in, they pay them to sit there and clap, and then they put the applause sign or laughter sign up, and that's about it. Was always really lightweight. And that's one of the things. I remember Most Def challenged him about 9/11, and he didn't like that either. So I don't know. If you're gonna make fun of someone to win the popularity contest, you're automatically right. That's why I don't even engage in certain leftist spaces. Right, because a lot of it is I'm finding a lot of really hyper online leftists or white left. Just run with me. Find a lot of hyper online white leftists or white leftists, and I mentioned this before, as a form of rebellion against the way that they grew up. It's politically expedient. They can be on the opposite side. It's a form of rebellion against parents and grandparents. and that's as far as they think about it. That's as far as they thought about it. You know, they may be anti-capitalism, but they're not anti-racism, right? They're not anti-sexism. They're not transphobia. Like they're not anti any of these other things. The only thing they don't like is capitalism, and the reason why they don't like it is because they feel like they've been cheated out of an inheritance. That their parents had this life, and they're constantly striving to attain the privilege that their parents had. Yeah, Bill Maher is really bad. And and I think and I'm going to say centrist because I don't know. I think for him, he's just a comedian, and he says whatever's going to get the biggest reaction. Like the only stance I've ever seen Bill Maher put 10 toes down on is either something anti-religion or smoking weed. And those are the two stances that he will stand 10 toes down on, stand on a square about. Yeah, he believes in left wing politics because they probably he's the rich white guy in Hollywood doing the thing that they accuse Hollywood liberals of doing. Except he's doing it on a higher level. I found militant atheists are the same assholes their parents are. Yeah. I also have, I've been running to my thing with because I deal and I talk about my neurodivergence and stuff like that. I found a lot of people who are in the neurodivergent space who are anti-kid can be as belligerent and rude about stuff as possible, where they just hate kids. They just hate children. I don't like children. Okay, that's cool. I don't think they should exist in public spaces. Hold on. Hold on a second. Yeah, they just converted. I think a lot of it is just being argumentative to fight something. And like I said, I'm not affiliated when it comes to a lot of religious stuff. But I feel like a lot of times people take stances just because it's expedient to argue with somebody. Yeah, aside from away from their asshole parents using the religion as kind of abuse system. Yeah. Yeah, he's a provocateur. That's probably the best word. And I've seen people say things and he'll mock them on the show, and then they turn around and be right, and then he won't have them back on the show. Yeah, I don't think he's I don't even think he's a liberal. I don't see him as a liberal. Not in the I don't really necessarily even see him as a liberal, because he's a liberal, but if you're saying he's a liberal, we have to square a lot of his really, really super hard line, belligerently racist stuff. Like a lot of people that occupy the liberal space are good about masking some anti-blackness or stuff like that, or Islamophobia or whatever. He wears that proudly on his sleeve. I don't see him as I wouldn't count Bill Maher. I don't know if I count him as the liberal. I feel like he's that level of. I feel like he's the South Park centrist without insight. Where South Park at his worst. Well, you know how when South Park was really in that centrist bag, and it was almost lacking any kind of insight. I think he's just stuck there. I think that's where he is. And I think we also get into a weird rabbit hole when we start trying to assign him or ascribe a political ideology to him, as opposed to he might be early Gen X, or I think he might be boomer adjacent guy that's never really had to want for anything, but feels like he has the cool stances. So he takes the cool stances. So he's pro marijuana and pro this, that, and the third. I remember the one where he did that interview with Steve-O, and or he wanted to do an interview with Steve-O, and Steve-O was going on his sobriety journey, and he kept trying to smoke weed in front of Steve-O, and Steve was like, I don't want to do that. And Bill Maher was really dismissive of the whole thing. So I just feel like maybe his political affiliation is asshole. But that was one of the things me and my mother-in-law used to argue about, because she was a huge fan of Bill Maher. And so, we just didn't see eye to eye on it. Aaron Sorkin. That might be more along the lines of the Aaron Sorkin sneering um, West Wing, the West Wing centrist, West Wing liberal. You know, the one that feels like making a mic drop statement is the most impactful thing that one can do. It is. It's a pretty broad term, and it's not necessarily a lot. Like, and one of the things about the political party system, and I've talked about this on here before. One of the crazy things about the American political party system is it rotates all the time, right? And so realistically, the best way to view things is either progressive or conservative, or because once you start getting Democrat, Republican, and everything, those terms move around. They shift all the time, because if because a Democrat in 2026 is not the same as a Democrat in 1906 or 1926 or 1946 or whatever. They're not the same party. They don't have the same platform. But we keep the labels intact because it makes it easier for stupid people to argue about it. Because if I had to say, yeah, the Democrats that you say were pro-slavery, which it was, the Southern Democrats, they were, but then we need to look at all the other parties that have taken place since, all the other parties that have existed since, and hence. And so I think the political labels make it really easy for people who don't understand, the spectrum of political thinking to argue about things. They can look and say, well, that's a Democrat, that's a Republican, or whatnot. I mean, if you really want to break it down, for a long time, the progressives were Republicans and the conservatives were Democrats in American history. And depending on what was going on in the country or who was in office and things along those lines, the label shifted around. There's a reason why we don't have Whigs or Democratic Republicans anymore, or the Silver Party. There's a reason why Silver Party doesn't work. Okay, so and neoliberalism is the father to pretty much all of this. Like, because and I think when we start using these terms, like I said, I got into it with somebody trying to use neoconservative and neoliberal and neoconservative as interchangeable things. Is like, no, 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 no. you know, just like your dad isn't your uncle. If I mean, that may be the case in some of these people, but um neoliberalism is kind of the parent to modern liberal and conservative ideology. It's more of an economic thing. All right, the older conservative generation will be that older conservative has to be his main audience, but they're starting to pivot towards it, and that's the weird thing, because they're like, Bill Maher isn't woke. He's not woke. Now, 15 years ago, he is a filthy liberal. Like he's like it was like, you could be Bill Maher, but now he ain't woke. Yeah, because there are conservative Democrats. That's the thing. But we don't allow for that level of nuance. And Republicans, where they're conserving now, because they're just labels. It's all marketing labels. Republicans who go Democrats were pro-slavery never square that circle when they connect the current Republican being progressive and pro-civil rights, because for them, being progressive is a negative thing. And they would have hated Lincoln's version of liberalism. They would have hated the radical Republicans. They would have hated them. They would have been on the other side of them, protesting them, screaming at them and stuff. They would say Trump is operating as a neoliberal president, neoconservative. They're all neoliberal. um, they're all neoliberal. Like, from all the way back from from like, what was it? FDR all the way through. All the presidents are neoliberal. Like they all fall under the banner of neoliberalism. That's like neoliberalism and neoconservatism are not exchangeable terms, are not, they don't mean the opposite of each other. And that's what confuses people. Yeah. I know. Saying they never finish that thought. Yeah, they never get to it, because if they had to get to that thought, just like I had a dude, oh, I'll never forget this. I was online. This dude was sitting there trying to tell me Ben Carson was a black nationalist. Are you out of your mind? A MAGA dude trying to tell me Ben Carson was a black nationalist. Are you crazy? Well, you need to learn more about Ben Carson. Do you understand that for most of the black excellence generation, which is my generation that grew up with parents that were post-civil rights, and they're trying to push us into all the things that we could get access to, Gifted Hands was required reading. We all read that Ben Carson autobiography. And for a long time, my mom wanted me to be Ben Carson, and then she got a whiff of his politics and she said he's crazy. Yeah, because they don't want to. Well, I think sometimes I wonder if there's a capacity to understand the nuances of the political positions they take. Because I do think a lot of times people wear their politics the same way that they wear their favorite brands of clothing. Yep, they're trying because they don't want those other people. They don't want black and brown people to necessarily be equal, because they're competition in the marketplace for jobs and all that other stuff in their mind. But at the same time, they don't want to be seen on the other side of it, because racism is bad. And for them, racism is hurt feelings, not limited opportunities. Yeah, there's truly, yeah. And I think what's happening with progressivism, and I think specifically on the left, we're seeing the splintering of the left, because it is, and I think we have to wrap our minds around this. When you start getting center and left of the spectrum, you're going to start finding a more diverse group of people. As you start going more conservative, it's pretty is the word homogeneous? I think it's pretty homogeneous, where it's pretty much the same group of people. You might have a little bit more variation, but as you start progressing along the spectrum of left-wing politics, you start finding that there's a more diverse array of people engaging in them. And what that turns into is there's more points of argument. Yeah, Ben Carson, it was crazy. Like I almost dropped my phone. Yeah, I think that was his autobiography. I think it was Gifted Hands. And they made every like there's a whole generation of us that we whole generation of black males that we had to read Gifted Hands. Like that was it. Like that was, he was supposed to be our model, our role model. You know, this is I came up crack era, like so and so he was seen as the guy that we needed to look up to. You know, there's a reason why a lot of black folks my age had a very difficult time separating Theodore Huxtable from Bill Cosby, because he was shown and demonstrated as our version of black excellence. And so it was hard to disconnect the two things. Not just economically. I think they think of it socially and biologically. Yep. Post crazy. Yeah. There's a whole, like, they made, like, my mom was like, you need to, like, she made me read that book. And I had to do a book report on it for school. Because he was seen as, like, he was a black neurosurgeon. That was impressive. You know, and he'd overcome the same poverty that we had lived in and whatnot, and he wasn't limited by it. But his version of coping with it was a full embrace of the same system that had him his ass marginalized in the first place. Yeah. Well, and so for us, that's why a lot of people have fought. to the ground when all the Bill Cosby allegations came out, because they're like, no, not Dr. Huxtable, because he was seen as, for a lot of people, like he was the ideal. I had a bit a long time ago, and so I might be getting into too much black stuff, but I had a bit long time ago, the movie Boomerang with Eddie Murphy, where he was an ad executive. And it was about his love life. He was a player, and he met the woman that broke his heart and played him and stuff. And it was just talking about that. It was a rom-com, more or less. And I said, Marcus Graham, who was Eddie Murphy's character, Marcus Graham was our American dream. A lot of young black men sat there and watched that show, watched that movie, and said he has a penthouse apartment. He has a job where he's in control of everything and nobody's telling him anything. He's in charge. He has all the outfits. He has all the money at his disposal, all women and everything. That's what my American dream looks like. And so for a lot of guys my age, we saw Marcus Graham and Boomerang. It's like, yo, this is the life we want to exist in. I just wish African Americans didn't have a fear of left-wing politics or even socialism. So, okay, this is the power of labeling. And this is one of the things I said about this. One of the things when Bernie was running, sorry, I had to take my shoe off. One of the things when Bernie was running, I said he needs to let go of the label of democratic socialist, because there's a lot of people who are older who will not vote for a socialist. It doesn't matter what the politics are. It doesn't matter what his political position are, because they grew up during the Red Scare, and that was the linchpin. That was the thing that got people marginalized. They're not going to vote for it. They're not going to vote for it. And that's what I said. I said the labeling is bad. He needs to ditch that label and find something else, because a lot of people aren't going to get behind that. And it doesn't have anything to do with his political positioning. It has everything to do with the labeling and the history of America and socialist and communist movements within this country. It's just, it was a kiss of death from the jump street. And as long as they could keep trotting that out, he was vulnerable. Man, I want to be Claire Huxtable for upper middle class lawyers. Yeah, it was an amazing show for what it was. But then also you have to separate the person that was the actor on the show from the person that's the character on the show. And that was a very hard thing for some people to do. Mothers. It broke the left-wing coalition. You were right. That is 100% right. Because they were able to say, this civil rights person is a communist, and this labor leader is a communist. And so they used it to purge a lot of people who would identify otherwise as leftists. They used it to purge them from public discourse. That's why the 60s and 70s were so bereft of leaders, because the younger and up and coming got purged in the 50s, right? You could lose your entire existence if you got identified on that end. And that's why it lost a lot of institutional knowledge and ability. Like if you ever read any, what was it? The Spook Was Set by the Door, Don Greenlee. And it's a fictional piece of work, but it talks about about the politics of the 60s and how they actually viewed Black revolutionaries, and how the government actually talked about Black revolutionaries. And they would always think that they were Russian controlled, that we didn't have the capacity. We did not have the capacity on our own to have a capacity for left-wing critique of the government. They thought all of it was fed by the Russians. And that is emphasized in that book. There's plenty of passages where the main character actually plays into that. Because the story is the fictional story about the first Black man to join the CIA. And then he takes all of his CIA training and takes it back to Chicago and teaches all the espionage and weaponry and stuff to the gangs in Chicago. And he sits around and waits for the next riot to start up. And then he gets them active in the streets. And so But a lot of the language, he was relying upon the people trying to arrest him, that they were going to say it's the Reds. The Reds are provoking this. If we find the leader of the Reds, whoever is the communist that's inspiring them, and take the head off of it, then we can contain this issue. That was the entire theme of the book. So yeah, the Red Scare did a lot of damage. Educational system. All right, cool. So that part is why I'm not debating with people on the platform. I don't mind talking. Like, I don't mind having these kind of conversations because I feel like they're productive. And I don't necessarily always have to have the conversation with people that agree with me. But what I'm not going to do is open it up where somebody can just sit there and berate me with their political ideology and expect me to answer everything for them. Yep, I'll drop it in there. Matter of fact, that book got turned into a movie that actually got banned in some places down south. So it's the book Spook Who Sat by the Door by Sam Greenlee. I can't remember how to spell his last name. So, like I said, it's really an interesting snapshot of what was going on in America at the time from that writer's perspective. So, all right, let me see what else I got here. And I'm sorry if I cut it short, guys, because I got some other stuff going on, but I'm gonna try to get through as much of this. And I do love the engagement. That's why I keep, sometimes I will ditch topics just because the conversation is so good. All right. Let's talk a little bit about how the discourse around the Voting Rights Act has been. This is so weird. What's weird? Oh, you just heard about that movie days ago for the first time. Yeah, the book was a little bit more intense than the movie was, but the movie scared people legitimately. Like, it scared people to the point where, there was like, this movie's been banned, or it wasn't officially banned. It was more like, these theaters will not carry it. And growing up in Omaha, and I think you're in Midwest, you're kind of in the same Midwestern area too. They can decide actively not to. Yeah, they can. These theaters will actively decide not to carry specific movies. Like, when I was growing up, there are specific Black movies that they would not carry. They absolutely wouldn't carry them at all. So, oh shoot, let me turn that off. So, they would specifically not carry specific Black movies because they're worried that it might send the wrong message. So in the 90s, that was a very big thing. Like, we didn't get Boys in the Hood to play here in Omaha. And Omaha has a population of people, right? But they would not play Boys in the Hood here for nothing. Yeah. We're actually incredibly anti-racist since it was a territory. Yeah. But then we do have the Midwest racism is an interesting, polite kind of racism that's very hard to explain to people who aren't from here. It's very hard to explain to people who aren't from here because they're so nice. The only time they'll show their fangs in, like, if you have a Facebook post that is a news station's Facebook post, in the comment section, they will show their fangs in there. But otherwise, it's really super polite form of horrible racism. It's crazy here. Topeka had a huge multi-generational civil rights community. And I think people forget, pretty much every major city in the United States has a history of civil rights and has a Black community that has a history with integration and civil rights and stuff. Every major city, it's not just limited to the coast. Now, there may be fewer, but every major city pretty much has some kind of history. Yep, Brown versus the board was in Topeka. Half-ass trying to force segregation. Omaha didn't like. We didn't. Our schools were segregated up until the 70s, bro. Like, they were segregated. They fought tooth and nail to keep these schools segregated. And people were really mad about forced busing, and then forced busing turned into its own kind of little disaster. Just started as integrated. Oh, sure, I get that. Topeka's lynchman is around, so it's nationally known, right? And it ends up becoming the one that carries the water for all the other movements or whatnot. Yeah, Topeka. I know a lot of people in Topeka. I've hung out with a lot of folks in Topeka, and so yeah, But I think what happens is when we talk to people who aren't from, like, they're not from Omaha, or they're not from Topeka, Kansas. They're not from. It's this assumption that Black people are only in these specific cities in the country, and nothing of historical importance or significance regarding civil rights happened anywhere else. Again, I tell people, for a long time, Omaha was like the number one worst ranked state when it came to impoverished Black poverty. Have you watched Judas and the Black Messiah? Go watch The Murder of Fred Hampton. The Murder of Fred Hampton gives you a really accurate. There are parts of Judas and the Black Messiah that are okay, but there's a lot of it that was Hollywood. But I'm glad he introduced you to the politics of Fred Hampton. There's a documentary called The Murder of Fred Hampton. And it actually gives a lot of his speeches and a lot of his political ideology, but then also tells what the situation was on the streets in Chicago at the time. Right. High schools are integrated, but the sports teams and cheerleaders and other things were. Oh yeah. That's a Midwest thing. Like, people say, well, sundown towns don't exist. Like, you don't live here. There are places in town where it's like, it's just kind of known. You don't drive around there at night. That's 15 minutes from me. That's an hour from here. Like, there are places like, if you Black, man, you be out there driving on these Nebraska interstates heading over to Colorado. They will find a reason. So I think people mistake the politeness, overt politeness. Oh, yeah, thanks for the recommendation. Yeah, go check it out. It's an amazing film. I think people mistake the overt politeness for, oh, well, they can't possibly be racist. I'll tell you what. Ooh, I got called some colorful names when I played football, bro. Shoot, one of the first fights I ever got in that I remember, that wasn't somebody I knew when I was actually fighting a stranger. I was at a pool with one of my friends, at a public pool, and a bunch of white kids tried to keep me out of the pool because they're like, I don't want your greasy hair messing up the water. And that was a fight. And I was like, I was like 8. And so I think people mistake that veneer of politeness for, can I drop book recommendation? Go for it. We love books. We love book recommendations here. Shoot. Let me try to copy that and paste it. Shoot, I actually have to go to the stream to click on that. So what? Just give me the title of the book, Maddie, if you could. Racism is I think it's a natural response. It's a response to having to compete with people that don't look like you, and that's how it's been boiled down to in this country. This is not Dixie. Racist violence in Kansas. Okay, I'm gonna check that one out because the book I finished a while ago was We Will Shoot Back, and it's about armed resistance, the armed resistance during the civil rights era in Mississippi. And it talks about, I mean, there's one specific town they talk about where they kept getting raided by the Klan, and a warning went out saying, "Don't send any more night riders here. That you've been warned," and they did, and they found them Klansmen's head on the bridge that they used to cross cross over, and they didn't have no problem with the Klans raiding them anymore. So, all right, let me put that in my let me Google that real quick so I can put that on my list. This is not Dixie. And then like this is not Dixie. The book, my book recommendation, We Will Shoot Back, and then there's this other one called That Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed. Dixie. Boom, I got it. All right, that's going on the reading list. I guess that shows how much the education system has failed people. Yeah. I found a book called The Klan in Kansas City, and the whole index was just naming names. Yeah, there's a whole history here. Where in the 19 Bloody Summer, where the typical story, a black man got falsely accused. They were going to lynch him. They did lynch him and burnt his body in front of City Hall, and then they tried to lynch the white mayor for trying to protect him. And a lot of it was done because there was a crime boss who was the unofficial boss of Omaha, who lost out on the mayor's race, and so he wanted the mayor out of the way, and so he whipped up a racist lynch mob to murder an innocent black man and burn his body just so that he can get the mayor out. Tom Dennison. He is Omaha's mob boss. And he controlled the local political scene here. Just like that. Yeah. It was really common here. You know, and I had an entire, like, if you want to go back and look, I had an episode where I said I was working on this weird theory where I feel like most Midwestern towns of a certain size, are just political enterprise or just criminal enterprises that they built infrastructure around. And I haven't been proven wrong on that one yet. Because Omaha was just a big criminal enterprise that they built roads and put a police force in. Los Angeles is that. I think Denver had its history with that. And a lot of cities out west were just gigantic criminal enterprises. So it was really common. There'd be several victims, and it was not rare for white people to be victimized too. Oh yeah. One of the things I tell people is the insanity of racism is racism hurts white people too. Not having access to free college, not having access to free healthcare. These things actually hurt white people too. The entire how we handle guns, because I'm not even, we shouldn't have guns or anything, but the way we even handle guns was built in an element of racism about who had access to it and what the guns were for. The school shootings and all other stuff, it hurts white people too. The wealth gap hurts white folks, but some people are so invested in the racism that they won't let it go. There's a reason why I think, and this is just my opinion, there's a reason why we don't have compulsory free school lunch for every child in the country. Because there's some people out there that will be mad that the wrong color kid is getting the free lunch. And so they will make sure that they will allow white kids to go without just so they could punish this black kid over here. It's deep. Small towns too. Yep. World is just criminal enterprise, right? Because it's unincorporated land a lot of times. So what built NASCAR? Yeah, NASCAR still run like a mob family. Shoot, Michael Jordan had to sue Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was getting shafted by NASCAR. He had to sue them. One of the single biggest names in the country in the history of athletics had to sue NASCAR because of their business practices. Dukes of Hazzard, we're just crack dealers of Hazzard County. I like that. You know what? That's a movie right there. That's a movie, The Real Dukes of Hazzard. Yeah, that's why we don't have socialized healthcare, because the wrong people might get it. It's the reason why we don't have a lot of colleges aren't free anymore. Because a long time colleges, in a lot of places around the country, college was free. You could go to college. But when they had to integrate them, then it was like, oh, we need to charge tuition to get in here. Just is what it is. Yeah, it's weird how prescient that show can be. As weird as Dave has gotten on some stuff in recent years, it's crazy how prescient that show was in terms of a lot of things. Boondocks is the same way. Like it just said it head checked. It mentioned a lot of things that were actually going on. That would end up becoming like hell. I mean, even fiction is amazing, and that's why I always have a love for fiction, is because different works of fiction can it does allow you to have the imagination to see where real life things will go. Like when the pandemic first hit us, I'm sitting there thinking Stephen King's The Stand and how people acted during that. So I wasn't really surprised by how loony people were acting around that time. Boondocks was 15 years too early. And the problem is they couldn't, a lot of it couldn't air now. We talk about woke people being sensitive. Those unwoke folks, what? Let me tell you. And it's still funny to me that people, when I watch the old episodes of the Boondocks, where they don't understand that Clarence Thomas was in the Boondocks. He's Uncle Ruckus. You look at this character model. That's who they drew him after. Rummy, that was Donald Rumsfeld. George Wunsler Jr., that was George W. Bush. And when you looked at the character design and looked at the person they were based off of, you could see the resemblance. Yeah. So, okay, if you ever watched a cartoon show, the character Uncle Ruckus, the self-loathing black man who hates himself and hates other black people, is his character's modeled literally off of Clarence Thomas. Like you could look at a picture of Clarence Thomas and see Uncle Ruckus. You see the character Uncle Ruckus. I can put it on the screen. You could see Rummy, who was I think Rummy was Charlie Murphy's voice, and his partner was Samuel Jackson's voice. And so, yeah, Jen Rummy and I think he was. Yep. He's Donald Rumsfeld. I'm putting it on the screen here in a second. He's Donald Rumsfeld. And his boy is George W. Bush. And he is just as dumb. Like, all right, so okay, my computer's thinking. All right, that's Rummy. And his partner is, who was it? It was W, but I forgot what his name was on the show. But you look at him, he looks like George W. Bush as a kid, as a younger guy. So it's Rummy and Ed Wunsler III. I'll put him on the screen too. The Boondocks was not subtle when it came to political send-ups. And it was funny because, they could get away with it. I don't think they could get away with having Trump's family getting skewered on there. Because remember, they even tried to cancel South Park, which I thought would never happen. But yeah, that's Ed Wuncler Jr. That's supposed to be George W. Bush. And they were two biggest idiots on the show. You know, Samuel Jackson, Rummy's character was intelligent because Donald Rumsfeld was conniving and manipulative. This guy was dumber than a box of hammers. And that was supposed to be George W. They were making fun of the president directly. I don't think they can get away with it now. Thomas, because fuck him. Yeah, Bush was a cokehead. That's the thing. When you hindsight being 2020, as much damage as he did, at least you had some level of competence on some level. Like you had Dick Cheney being the Lex Luthor of the whole thing. At least you had some level of evil competence. No, I didn't say I said competence. There's some level of evil, malicious competence occupying the White House. You know, we can't even say that. Like it's evil, but it's not even competence. It's evil stupidity is probably like, you don't want to live in the world of evil stupidity. Okay. So I think I'm gonna save some of this ADHD stuff till next week because I've been living in kind of an ADHD. Well, I could talk about it a little bit. I'll talk about the ADHD burnout thing. Yeah, there's some respect. I mean, we used to have proper imperialists. Like we used to have imperialists. At least the imperialists had an idea of what they were doing, which is a scary thing to say. You know, it's like, this is how far we've come. But I'll talk a little bit about this. So I realized earlier today I was kind of in an ADHD meltdown, and I've experienced those before. So as an adult, my ADHD is like inattentive. Like that's always been, kind of the daydreamer. At least they showed up for Memorial Day. Yeah. My ADHD has always been inattentive ADHD. I've had some hyperactivity, but mostly it's been, constant daydreamer and stuff like that. And I have a pretty good imagination, and it's helped me out on the business front because I can actually see. I have the ability to see around corners and think around corners in ways that a lot of consultants don't really have. Just because, I let my mind wander and I can come up with novel solutions. That's always been the thing I've known for, coming up with novel solutions to problems. One of the things is, and for me, my ADHD meltdown, it didn't come like when it didn't come out behaviorally. Sometimes it did. Sometimes it came out in big, huge emotions. But as an adult, it wasn't loud. It's not loud or dramatic. Okay. It looks like, I get overwhelmed, I get overloaded, and I just cease all activity. And I know I need to be doing the thing, but I cannot get my mind to do the thing. And I know the thing isn't high effort. And sometimes I know the thing is of utmost importance. I cannot flip the switch to go do the thing. Okay. And so I freeze and I shut down completely. And that's what my ADHD meltdown kind of it looks like. And oftentimes that's where specific people, specifically adults with ADHD, is why we'll get caught lazy, and till this day that hurts, because I'm like, if I'm so lazy, why am I exhausted all the time? Why am I constantly in motion? I feel like I never give myself any time to rest until I crash. And so I've had to kind of reckon with what this actually looks like. And I'm kind of in a season right now where I have too many opportunities. Like I have too many opportunities, and I'm actually overwhelming myself with different pathways I can take. And I know that sounds like bragging and whatnot, but it's really not. I have too many opportunities that could be very, very good for me. Comedy series. Where's it? ADHD plus me. Let me look it up. I'm always looking for good ADHD content. Maybe one of these days when I go to school, when I go back to school, I can finish a master's and get and actually finally become a clinical counselor like I got screwed out of. Um, so it's called a it's the show is called ADHD plus me. Okay. I'm gonna check it out. I think I've seen her stuff on YouTube, or at least seen one of them. Two women, both have ADHD. Okay, I might have to check it out. Let's see. Where's it streaming on? Also, web series, so that I can just watch that. That works for me. I will start checking that out and get back to you. Hopefully, I'll have something next week. um, but yeah, it does. It does. It can hurt when somebody's like, you're just lazy or. Yep, yep, I see it. It looks like it's news. What does it say? Web series from New Zealand. Yep. So I think we're on the right thing. And so, um, like I said, I have too many things that I could be doing, and that's overwhelming. Like, it's not what I'll fail at; it's what I'll start and then abandon when I don't get immediate success, and then I pivot to the other thing that could be successful when I start and don't have immediate success, and then I feel like a big ass failure because my reward system isn't rewarded um quickly enough. Few series with that title. Okay. Let me double check. Because I see the one from New Zealand, um, Britt Scott Clark and Ellie Hardwood or Harwood. And it's on Amazon. Because right now I only have one season. So came out in 2024. Yep, that's it. Okay. Then I'm gonna check it out and see what that show has to offer for me. But yeah, I think a lot of times specifically we have to be careful when we're ascribing the laziness label to kids, especially if they're neurodivergent, because like I said, that one when somebody says that, that actually cuts me pretty hard because I feel like I work pretty hard. But when my brain shuts down, I can't force it to do anything. Okay. And so my ADHD meltdown, I'm still articulate. I don't lose my language. I may look like I'm functioning. Um, I have full understanding of what's going on, but I can't start. My brain is jammed, and that's what it feels like. And so you may not know the difference. And so it's kind of a paralysis that happens. And I had a job, I'll never forget it. I had a job where I went in to my supervisor and I'd never done the work that we had been doing before. It was case management. I asked my supervisor, I said, "Hey, I've never done this before. This is super complex and I didn't really get trained on this specific thing. Help me figure out what my priorities are with this role. What is the thing that I'm supposed to be doing? What is, where it's the most important thing I need to deliver on every single day." Because at the previous job, working in the group home, it was keep the kids safe, make sure the kids are observed, make sure they're safe. Everything else can go by the wayside as long as you're keeping the kids safe. That was simple. I could focus on that. So when everything else, when I was dealing with other chaos, I could lock in on that one thing and execute on that one thing. And that allowed me to excel in that role because that's what I became really good at is controlling the environment and making sure it wasn't too chaotic, specifically with kids that may be assaultive and stuff. But I went to my supervisor and said, I need to know what my priority in this job is. And she's like, I can't tell you that. You got to figure that out on your own. Well, you've just set me up to fail. And I think I've told that story. So it's kind of a skit show. Okay. Yeah, go for it. Classic Sam. I'm gonna check her out. I follow a lot of ADHD streamers, and I'm building out probably an ADHD playlist for something else I'm trying to put together. Classic Sam, NYG. Looking it up, because if I don't do it on stream, I will forget. And okay. I have to keep looking it up. Classic Sam, NYG. I think I typed that. Oh, I spelled it wrong. I'll find it. She has more Dungeons and Dragons, but she talks all the time about dealing with it. I may look it up. Because I was thinking about just sitting there playing Overwatch and talking ADHD stuff. I don't know if anybody specifically is interested in watching me play Overwatch poorly and talk ADHD stuff, but I've always thought that I could add that element to my stream and see where it goes. So I'll pull up Twitch here. Hopefully you don't get a whole bunch of background noise. So I can put her on my watch list. Because I'm always looking for ADHD content. Not the people in ranked. Like a lot of the people in ranked aren't really good at the game, and we're just playing for vibes. We're just really playing for vibes. The problem is a lot of them think that they're really, really good. And then that's normally who's on my team, and that's normally who's either tank or healer. Normally they take over the very they take over the roles that mean the most, and they end up screwing it all up. Well, here's the thing. So with Overwatch specifically, Overwatch is a hero shooter. It's a team game. It requires a team effort. But jumping on the comms is punishing. Like, it's punishing. It's one of the most toxic comms experiences I've ever had was on Overwatch. The reason why I don't get into voice chat with people on video games anymore. But it almost is required to move up. And so you're stuck in this weird, I don't want to jump on here with these super negative, hateful ass people, but we're getting destroyed here. What's up? What's up? How you doing? So yeah, I may do the thing where I jump on here and do just play Overwatch and do stream of consciousness with my ADHD and talk ADHD stuff as a business owner specifically. It's just getting this computer to work the way I need it to. Yeah, I'm always looking at adding elements specifically to Twitch because I think that that's a platform I actually have an ability to grow. And I want to see where I can take it. So I feel like I have a decent voice. I feel like I have a decent message out there, whatnot. Nerd, comic book, politics, ADHD. We'll see which one lands, but I think I'll try that at some point this week. I will try it. I'll make that promise. I'll try it this week. Yeah, the thing about the ADHD meltdown as an adult is it looks like inaction, it looks like inactivity, and then it gets ascribed to a bunch of negative stuff for people, and that makes it feel even worse. And so you work super, super hard. You work even harder. You grind yourself to the bone, working so hard, just so that you can catch up, and people don't think you're lazy, and you drive yourself to the next meltdown, or you overwhelm yourself. That's the game. Okay. The way I've handled it, I've done lots of different things to handle it. I'm not even going to front y'all. I've had to. One of the things I discovered was putting my entire like. People are about to get mad at me about this, but I don't care. I've actually used like I've kind of given all my tasks and said these are all the things I need to accomplish, and just info dumped it into a chatbot or an AI or something, and they'll say, "Give me my first step," and that's how I get moving forward. I know people are going to hate it and stuff like that, but that has helped me out so many different times, almost as like a help aid. I don't know what else to say about it. And sometimes that was the only thing that gave me clarity, was dump all the stuff I have into an online brain and then say, give me the first step. I've done it. Let's see. Out of the box idea, I think Overwatch has sustained popularity slowly from the. No, I don't think so. I don't think Overwatch is that like the people that play it are into it. And I've even done it where I will play, like, my games are Overwatch, God of War, and stuff like that. I played other hero shooters trying to replace it. It's just not the same, bro. I used to do the Call of Duty stuff all the time. I tried to go back to Call of Duty. Just doesn't hit the same. I've tried to jump over and play Marvel Rivals, and it's not as fun to me. It's one of those things where it's just the Overwatch players get it, bro. Even the ones that end up not liking the game and quitting the game, they come back to it and they're like, I missed it. It's just, I think that's what sustains it. That's what gives it its staying power, because you have to play it a lot in order to be good at it. You have to, there's certain strategies, there's a certain level of chess that you're playing all the time, because it's not just about, I have to, I'm playing the game, I have to shoot the person in front of me in Overwatch. It's, I have to hold this angle, hold this space so that my team can move up and capture this thing so that we can move forward. And my job is to watch this line of sight and that line of sight and this line of sight, that line of sight. And it's a big L shape. So I need to stay off of the long part and stay on the short part and keep my line of sight. Like, there's so many different micro thoughts that you're having. It's perfect for my ADHD brain. I have to make so many decisions in a minute, because every decision, any wrong step, any wrong positioning, is it for my team? And since it's a team shooter, you can't really solo your way into it. If you end up in a 3-on-5, you're going to lose. And so you have to pay attention to resources and everything else. I know there are other hero shooters that are like that, but that's the one that engages me the most. But yeah, I get it. There's a lot of creeping. There's a lot of creepiness. There's a lot of creeping on Overwatch. There's a lot, but Marvel Rivals has its thing too. So yeah, I may do that. Like I said, for me, the way I have to process getting past a ADHD meltdown is actually forgiving myself for all the things that I didn't get done, and then piece by piece finding ways to implement and get the things done. Okay. So the next segment is kind of brought to you by ADHD. I was sitting there thinking, and I actually saw the trailer. I think it was Godzilla Minus Zero. I am there. Have you guys seen Godzilla Minus One yet? Have you seen it? Have you seen Godzilla Minus One? So I'm excited about Godzilla Minus Zero. And so, me and the fam watched Godzilla Minus One. And there's a part of me that I wish, there's a part of Godzilla that I wish wasn't my personality. And it is the dedication to absolute pettiness. Like, it was I don't even think it was I don't think it was a conscious thing. Yes, it's so good. Yeah, it's the best Godzilla movie I've ever seen. And I watched every Godzilla movie. I've seen every Godzilla movie. It's the best one I've ever seen. Because it actually took it like serious. But I'm sitting there and I was impressed by Godzilla's commitment to being petty. And what I mean by that is Godzilla's energy was fuck that guy in particular. Just that one guy. I'm going to make his life a living nightmare for as long as I can. And in any way that I can. What was the main character's name? I'm trying to recall it now. Godzilla. I got to look it up now. Godzilla was determined to ruin this man's life. It was amazing. It was so amazing to watch Godzilla just show up at every turn. This guy got things going. He survived this nightmarish thing that nobody could explain. Like, how do you explain that? I was on an island with a bunch of people and a giant monster came out of the ocean and killed everybody. Godzilla, that's the star's name, the lead character. No, there's another lead character in the movie who Godzilla is tormenting. Koichi. Oh, Koichi, bro. The psychological torment Godzilla exacted on Koichi, and it just felt petty. Like, it felt like petty vengeance. But spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it yet, by the way, I'm sorry if you have not seen it. Yeah, he is the lead character. And he was quite a character. Like, they didn't make it look like he had some upper level of intelligence like they do in the other movies. They made him really seem like a force of nature. And it worked because it made him look cunning and scary and frightening. The scene where Godzilla is chasing the boat is absolutely frightening. That is terrifying. But his level of dedication to screwing with Koichi was like, I hope that if I ever get an arch enemy, I can deliver that kind of frustration and constant sorrow to their lives like Godzilla did. It was so amazing. It was so incredible. Yeah, it was. He stalked this man. Like I said, he jumped out of the ocean. Imagine you're standing on a beach, minding your own business. And, you're already going through this entire guilt trip because you're supposed to be a kamikaze pilot and you didn't kamikaze anybody. And you have to deal with the awkwardness of those conversations. And then you're on the island and then a giant lizard monster just comes out of the ocean at night. You don't even know what you're looking at. You don't even know what you're looking at. And it destroys everything. It kills all but two of you. And you have to deal with not only the trauma of the horrors of war, but figuring out whatever the hell that was. Whatever the hell that thing was. It was crazy. And that poor guy, he gets his, should have picked the Man in the Woods over Godzilla. Godzilla had that Raven energy, remembers your face, it comes for you. Right. He gets his life together, has a nice, weird existence with that young lady that was supposed to be, I guess, wife, girlfriend. I don't know why he did, like, he had his weird commitment issues and all that other stuff, but it was part of his PTSD, which I get. I understand how past traumas can impact your relationships. It looks like everything's on the up and up. He gets that job. He goes out there and he's trolling mines, and all of a sudden the green monster is back. And they didn't believe him at first till they saw it. Then everybody else is equally traumatized because now imagine you've never seen a Godzilla thing before and now you're looking at one. Your eyes would not even begin to tell your brain what you were looking at. You wouldn't be able to conceive of that thing. And it chased him and it destroyed a bunch of other boats, and they realized that they were just being used as expendable. And so now he has to take this home. He has to take this home with him. Then Godzilla blows up the city. After he saves the love of his life, Godzilla blows up the city. And the sound design on that was amazing. So it's like Godzilla dedicated his life to screwing with this guy on level. And he's in the new movie. He's in the sequel. So now we get to watch him terrorize this specific person for a whole nother movie and then terrorize New York, apparently, because that's what's going to be in the sequel. Amazing. That level of dedication to petty vengeance is really, that is only marked by, if you ever read the Thanos Annual, I think it was, where it's like little stories about Thanos just being like a villain for the love of the game, just being the biggest villain that he could possibly be. That's where the Godzilla thing went. You know, and if you don't know about the Thanos Annual, let me run it down. I think there are 3 stories in there. I only remember 2 of them. One, Thanos just randomly picked a guy and decided every year on his birthday he was going to come screw with that guy, and make him feel some kind of tragedy every year. And so every year on this guy's birthday, Thanos would show up and do something horrible and inflict. Yeah, okay. The story there, I gotta find the comic book where they actually give the backstory for it, because it's really kind of an amazing thing. But yeah, he was simping hard for death, and she wasn't having anything to do with him. In this book, Thanos decided that he was just going to screw with this one guy every birthday that he ever had, and he got really inventive. Like, one, well, I think on his 16th birthday, Thanos just teleported into the guy's room, snatched his phone out of his hand, sent his girlfriend some really ugly things on text message, and destroyed his relationship with his girlfriend. And then said happy birthday and tossed him his phone. When he was like 5, Thanos pulverized the car the kid's dad was in and killed his dad. When he was in college, he poisoned everybody in his frat house. When he was about ready to graduate, Thanos blew up his graduate school. And and at the end of it, the guy has this big, huge monologue about, he had this big, huge monologue about, yeah, that's not right. But Thanos kind of ruled. I'm just saying, right. Because I appreciate that level of villainy, because he's not being a villain for stupid purposes. He's being a villain just because that's what he wants to do. He loves the sport so much. He loves the game of villainy. To me, that makes the best villain in the world. He doesn't have to do it. He wants to do it. I love that about him. But I love that about that book. And this guy had this big, huge monologue, like, I've tried to figure out why you've tried to destroy me. And he has this big inspirational thing. He's like, but I'll never give up. I'm still here, and all this other stuff. And then I was like, I don't care about all that. And busted the main water line in the guy's apartment and flooded it and said, I'll see you next year. It was amazing. That level of pettiness is really like, and the other story in there, which was a lot darker. But Thanos did some time travel shenanigans, and manipulated time in a way that this girl that would have been, she would have cured every disease and brought world peace. He altered the timeline in a minor way where she never interacted with the person that would inspire her to do that. And then Thanos waited until she was on her deathbed and showed up to her deathbed. And right before she passed, he telepathically showed her the life that she was supposed to live and said, I did that. Basically, I did this to you. Like some Ron Isley, R. Kelly. That is a very black reference. But I did this to you kind of thing. It was one of the darkest things I've ever seen. Pure dedication to the world of villainy. Lex Luthor thinks that he is doing the right thing, right? Darkseid is just, I want what I want, and that's why I'm a bad guy. Thanos is just like, fuck you, just because. I'm a bad guy. That's what I do. I do bad things to people. I do bad things to good people. That's what makes me a villain. That is Thanos' entire MO. And I love that for him. I also think as a character, the way they presented Thanos and Darkseid, Thanos, he since he knew he couldn't die, Thanos had a death wish, and so he fought like he had one. And so whenever they would be fighting, whenever you see him fighting, he's fighting like he wants, he wants somebody to end it all, knowing that they can't. That's always been the interesting dynamic of that character to me. Yeah, Keith David as Lex Luthor uh would be amazing. Um, oh boy, who was it before? Clancy Brown really nailed that character, the voice part of Lex Luthor on the Justice League. I think Keith David could do amazing. The Shadow Man as Lex Luthor, sign me up. Oh, really? Is he tall? I've always thought him as a short dude. Um, but then I remember watching that movie They Live with Roddy Piper, and he was in it. I think that was him. He was he was standing like shoulder to shoulder with Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper was not a small person. His voice is crazy. He's a super talented guy. And I mean, and he seems to have fun with who he is and stuff like that. Where people take him seriously so much that he'll make fun of it. Because I think he was in Tales from the Crypt 3, and there's an entire sequence in there where he kind of breaks character, but it's funny. And he's kind of making fun of who they always present him as. He's tallish, cool. I didn't watch Community. That's one I have to go back and actually watch. I've seen a couple of episodes of it. But it was always in hindsight. And then after the Chevy Chase thing, I kind of, but I'm gonna go check it out. Okay. Let me see if I can find that's another thing that I got so many things to add to the streaming, and part of it, part of my bag on here is going to be media analysis. So I may check it out. Do not want to ruin this best episode. It's a later episode. I'll just look it up and see. And maybe that'll be my entry point into the series. Yep, I will look it up and see. Oh, don't do that. Watch the whole thing. Okay. Let's see. I made my point about Godzilla and being a fan of. I kind of see him and Thanos in that weird light. Like, to me, that's the highest level of villainy. If you reach Thanos level of villainy, it's not even doing bad, horrific stuff. It's just petty vengeance, just because. Oh, the setup. Okay, so I have to watch the whole thing. Got you. Okay. Couple things comic book related. Struggling to kind of stay in sync with comic books right now. Like, I'll be honest with you. Comic books has always been my refuge, but summer is a weird time because Marvel always has their weird crossover event in the summer, and they everything just comes to a screeching halt. And I think we're kind of entering that place where everything's coming to a screeching halt. Plus, the X Office is all over the place. They're just doing things in the X-Men books. Tom Brevoort is a disaster in the X Office. And we should have known that it was going to take this turn when they screwed up the Krakoan era. When they screwed up Krakoa, bro, that was it. I think Supergirl's going to be a sleeper. I think it's going to be a James Gunn kind of thing. Again, I know he's directing it, but I think it's going to be that James Gunn thing where you go in with low expectations and you leave amazed. I think, like, I wasn't, when Peacemaker came out, I wasn't 100% on it because Peacemaker was like this Z level DC character, and he made it really interesting. And I had seen because he won me over. What was it with the Suicide Squad when he did that? And so I started caring about him. I'm like, they're going to do a whole show about this guy, and I didn't know how they would pull it off, and they pulled it off really well. I think Supergirl is going to be the same thing. James Gunn hasn't really let me down as a director, pretty much since he started doing the superhero movies. It's kind of like Jon Favreau. I wish Jon Favreau would do more like Iron Man was his magnum opus in terms of superhero movies. I wish he would do more. But I think he didn't necessarily like working in the Marvel system. I'm expecting it. but the posters and trailers don't look so great. They're doing a pretty cruddy job marketing stuff, because I've been hearing great things about Spider-Man Noir, and they they have not marketed that thing at all. you know, I heard it's really good, but they ain't marketed that thing worth a damn. And so maybe it's just a Marvel and DC thing. I'll show Peacemaker. You can tell just from the ads. Cena was in it to win it. Yeah, he was proving himself. Even if it didn't work, he was fully committed. And I think it was just quirky enough and weird enough and violent enough. It carried a lot of things. And I think that Supergirl's probably going to be the same thing. Because you're dealing with the Supergirl with complex PTSD, and that one is a pretty honest interpretation of the character considering all that she had been through. And so I want to see what that looks like. The drunk Supergirl, the drunk party girl Supergirl who's coping with trauma. I want to see that. But yeah, I'm kind of just waiting around for the next summer event. I know DC has Crisis of Absolute Proportions or something. They got that coming up. Marvel has their Armageddon event coming up. I'm interested, but One World Under Doom, I think One World Under Doom started out so strongly to end so meh. Yeah. I think DC's next event, if I'm not mistaken, is the Crisis of Absolute Proportions. I really hope that I'm remembering that as a joke of absolute Crisis of Absolute Proportions. Called the Absolute Crisis. Okay. Yeah, it's not that stupid. Thank God. But I like the idea. I think he could carry it off. Plus I think they burnt the perfect Doom with the villain in the first Doctor Strange. That dude would have been perfect Doctor Doom. That would have been Doctor Doom. He would have been perfect at it. But I'll take Robert Downey Jr. He's the biggest name in the franchise. I mean, if he agrees to make a movie, you bring him back. You just killed. The only problem is you killed off Iron Man, so you have to find something else for him to do. It was way bigger than that one guy. I think one of the things is, you gotta look at it like Marvel's biggest hits, like the ones that everybody was raving about, were Russo brothers projects. And so losing the Russo brothers as the head of the engine in terms of Avengers stuff, that was pretty devastating. And so I think they're going to get back in line and kind of get back onto it. I don't know if they'll ever reach the proportions they were, where they were just must see things, where they were kind of events. I don't know if we're ever going to regain that movie as an event kind of thing after the pandemic, but I'm interested to see. I'm not rooting against comic book movies. Like, I've sat through so many bad comic book movies that I am not about to poo-poo good ones. One who got fired. Yeah, Zemo. I want to see more. I need more Zemo. I think that was a waste. I don't want to say wasted character. He really did, he came into his own in Captain America or Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I think that there was a lot of runway with his character. I want to see what the Masters of Evil actually looks like. He should have been in the Thunderbolts. I was hoping that he was. I think that might have been a missed opportunity, because making him the swordsman or whatever, because even in the comic book version of Thunderbolts, it was Baron Zemo as the main villain and stuff like that, or the main hero, however you want to describe Thunderbolts. And so, and he's an Avengers villain. Like, I don't know where Zemo was an Avengers villain. I'm wondering if we're ever going to see Avengers villains like Zemo or Count Nefaria or whatever. Because Avengers did have some interesting team busting villains. You could always bring back Ultron. I mean, It's Ultron. I've seen Ultron die so many times in the comic books. Made his own Thunderbolts initiative. Yeah, I think that would have worked. And having him as some kind of secret, take off the mask as Baron Zemo, that would have been perfect. Yeah, he is a great actor. I think he was in Glorious Bastards. I think that's the first time I took notice of him. Was that him? All right. Yeah, I remember seeing him in Inglorious Bastards, and I kind of took notice of him then. He had those weird kind of charisma where it was understated. I really enjoyed him as Zemo. Yep. And so I think part of me, part of the problem, um, and I'll say this straight up, like one of the problems of the original Marvel Cinematic Universe is jumping to Thanos as the villain. There's so many other villains you can build up to, but they had to go, in terms of scaling a threat. It went from Loki to Ultron to Thanos. And that was really a huge leap. You skipped over so many. You skipped over the Masters of Evil. And in the comic book, the Masters of Evil were a persistent threat to the Avengers. I remember when they put Hercules in a coma. That shocked my 7-year-old mind. I almost beat Hercules to death. Messed up, mutilated Jarvis. Had Dr. Hyde mutilate Jarvis on some gangster stuff. The Masters of Evil were a real absolute problem, and I think they skipped over so many of the Avengers rogues to get up to, we got to get Thanos on the board. I would have been cool with Thanos being the primary villain of the Guardians of the Galaxy, because that made more sense from a comic book sense. Solomon Goodbye Lennon. Kneecap. Yeah, the Jonathan Majors thing did hurt them, because Kang the Conqueror, he would have been next up. But I was worried the direction that they were going with Kang, and establishing him as a threat, because in the Loki series they did a great job of how they established his degree of presence and threat. I was worried about how it was going to come across on the big screen. And one of the things is, the reason why Loki was so good was because they had so much time to tell the story, and it didn't feel like it had to be action every episode. And I think Jonathan Majors really thrived in that, where you have to establish kind of a rapport with these characters and get to know them. Chadwick passing did number 2. Yeah, he was Jonathan Majors. I think he was this weird, different version of a black leading man, and a lot of it was really, when you hindsight being 2020, a lot of it was really contrived to show, hey, this is how different I am. Yeah, and I think it was really contrived. I do think that there was an inauthentic. He was acting like it was an acting role. He's doing acting in his private life too. Yeah, certain quirks or things he felt like he's emulating. But when he was dialed in, when he's locked in, I mean, he is a phenomenal actor. It's really too bad that he should now that he's doing movies with Ben Shapiro for the cash. And filling Ben Shapiro's dream of being a screenwriter. I hope he's able to get away and escape from that. All right, I'm gonna have to wrap up here in a second, just because for time consideration. But again, like I said, I'm excited. If you haven't seen Godzilla Minus One, do it before Godzilla Minus Zero comes out. One of the best written, like, it wasn't just the best written Godzilla movie, it's one of the best movies I've seen. Sigh. Yeah. It's getting late. Let's see. I got a lot. I'm leaving a lot on the table for next week. And so I promise next week I could talk about a little bit about, the ADHD thing of the life you could have had. Rate bar day unless you have somebody else. Oh, it's okay. That's fine. Yeah, I gotta get off here. It's almost like it's 9 o'clock locally, and I've been on here a little bit longer than I anticipated on. But I love the conversation. I really do. Um, and I'm always down to talk politics or comic books. That's kind of my jam. That's where I'm happy at. That's where I'm comfortable at. Um, but yeah, I'll talk. I got some other stuff I can talk about. Hopefully, I got some more comic book stuff. And more Dark Tower stuff, like some more nerd stuff to talk about. Just because I don't want to just overwhelm it with just me dumping my brain on everybody else. So anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks, Maddie. Love to see you. Love to have you on here. Everybody else that dropped a comment, thank you. I really do appreciate you guys. This is kind of like this is the thing that one of the things that gets me excited. One of the things I look forward to every single week. And so I do appreciate y'all. I will talk to you later. Peace.